Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Caleb Slade to facilitate a conversation around blockchain and charitable giving, featuring Shannon Ewing from the community engagement side of presearch.org, Grace Torellas, founder of Giveth, Daniel Moore, director of the SALT Foundation, and Michael Shaun Conway, CEO of Storyworks and director of Rise Up, the Future of Humanity.
Cool, so this panel I am so excited about. We're going to be talking about not just theoretically how blockchain is going to change your world and the world of people who need it most, but the practicality of it. We're going to talk about the reality where the rubber is already hitting the road and the social impact really that blockchain is already having through some of these awesome projects. So similar to the panel right before lunch, I'm going to give you guys a 30-second overview of what you guys are working on as it relates to social impact, so we can introduce the concept to the crowd.
Well, thank you. I'm Shannon Ewing. I currently work with presearch.org. We're a decentralized search engine, so being very community-oriented with that. And my background is that I spent 10 years in the field working on international development and humanitarian aid projects, and came across cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and realized that this is the way that we are going to bring resources to developing regions.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Grace Torellas, and I am one of the founders of Giveth. Giveth.io, it's a platform, it's an open source platform that allows givers and makers come together to actually support a cause and create a campaign or a project that allows them to really follow up on an impact and bring a community around that will support these ideals or this cause. So we're an open source platform, and we pretty much support open source. So we are always inviting people to kind of develop on our own code and take Giveth as your own. So that's one of the projects. I'm also representing Blockchain for Humanity here, which is also
We'll give you an extra 30 seconds because you have two projects.
Okay, yes. It's all blockchain for good, blockchain for humanity. So we do want to raise visibility to projects that are bringing social impact. And we actually find out that these projects do not have that sort of exposure or visibility. And they're actually doing great stuff with this technology, using blockchain at its core to bring some really changes in making the world a better place in some of these developing countries as well. Thank you.
My name is Dan Moore. As you can see by my sticker, Grace already recruited me, so now I work for Giveth. I'm the executive director of the SALT Foundation, and the simple, easiest way to think of that, the bumper sticker, would be breaking down barriers to financial inclusion for the unbanked and the underbanked.
Great. I'm Michael Shaun Conway. I have a creative agency called Storyworks, and we've been working with social venture companies for many years, helping them to get purpose into their company and then creating some kind of impact in the world. And in the blockchain world, we're really, really interested in how projects and companies can design themselves to create benefit and impact. So kind of fourth sector between nonprofit and for-profit. How do you have a blended model like that?
Awesome. Sweet. Well, let's dive right in. Let's start, since you just went, Mike, let's start about this distinction between for-profit, nonprofit. I think there's kind of been this trend, probably for the last couple decades, where you're either a suit in it to make money at any cost and stomp on necks, or you're poor and trying to help other poor people. So what's happening? What's happening right now? In the space, and how's blockchain play into that?
Yeah, we look in general that there's an organization, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, can give a certain number of benefits, or they can be benefit-oriented. One of their benefits may be that their benefit is to have a direct positive impact on the world. So if I'm a company making a renewable resource like solar electricity, my benefit is I'm actually benefiting the world by reducing petrochemicals. I might have a benefit that's a secondary benefit. I'm like a protocol layer that actually supports other people, like Giveth does. Their benefit is that they're supporting people giving benefit. Or I might have a benefit that's associated with my business model. So Tom's Shoes, buy a pair, give a pair free. So that's kind of a secondary usage. And then there's also just the wonderful benefit of having an organization or company that supports the people that work in its ecosystem. So all stakeholders, the people who work for the company, vendors, et cetera, et cetera. And we feel that right now that it doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum between nonprofit and fully for-profit, that you can engage in one of those areas of benefit. And it's clear in a couple of ways that the marketplace is changing in the sense that all consumers want to give, to have something good happen in the world. And so your brand and the story about your brand, if it's only about getting money, it becomes very clear to the marketplace, and that's kind of unpalatable at this point. For blockchain, there's this really interesting opportunity in that many times when you have an ICO, you're getting money in a different way. So normally I would go through a first round of investment, I would dilute my company, I would go to Series A, I'd dilute my company again. And by the time I got around to thinking about what impact can I do, let's say I don't have a direct impact company, I might have my hands tied in being able to do something. With blockchain, the funding comes at the beginning. So if I design my white paper and my project to throw off benefit, there's nobody to say I can't.
Right.
Token holders are not going to say, hey, you can't go out there and do good in the world, like maybe an institutional investor. I'm not saying that they're going to say that directly, but might have some influence on it. Yeah. So right now we have an ability to integrate or build into these models great social benefit.
Shannon, do you think that there is, and you said you've been working in humanitarian, that sector in the aid sector for 10 years, right? Have you seen a shift in participants outside of the organizations? Have you seen a shift in mentality, more of an interest in funding these types of social impact projects or being involved?
I think people are really starting to recognize that there's potential to really start from the ground up as well. You know, right now, what we're seeing largely in the humanitarian and international development sectors are things like AidCoin, where we have UNICEF and the World Wildlife Foundation and these really giant organizations that are now kind of using cryptocurrency as an avenue to get more funding because they're realizing there's a lot of liquidity here. Okay. But what I'm really excited about is watching, you know, the village fisherman in Indonesia who's realizing that he now doesn't have to go through the predatory middlemen in order to get paid, that we can now start interacting peer-to-peer. And so what happens when we start like these tiny networks all over the world, and as that starts to mushroom, how we can start affecting each other that way. So yes, I do see early adoption.
Dan, talk to me about financial inclusion. Why should we care about financial inclusion versus just financing a community or an individual?
Well, what were the principles that got you behind blockchain? What was the reason why you got involved, right? And it's creating opportunity for everyone. And it's creating a more just world where it's an idea of this global community where it doesn't necessarily have to be what we always thought of as the have and the have-nots. Right. We can all be successful, we can all be rich, and we can all have the same opportunities. Blockchain gives you that opportunity to actually achieve those goals and see it through.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Grace, I'd like to move my attention to you for a moment. Me and Grace actually go back quite a bit. I described to other people, Giveth as doing to the ineffective organizations and nonprofit what Bitcoin did to banks, as opposed to having to have a trusted intermediary that, you know, takes a lot of money for the services they provide of managing the money and making sure it's used well. They provide this direct relationship. So tell me about the importance for the Giveth project of relationship between the two sides of social impact.
That's really the fundamental of this project, or this concept, was that we really feel that there is a need to create these decentralized altruistic communities, or these DACs that we call, that kind of self-organize around a cause, around a belief. And it starts with two, right? One person that probably provides the fund and the other one who actually wants to make it happen. And we realized that we were that ourselves when we started Giveth. So it was an idea that we wanted to create something with this technology and allow other people to do it. And we started this way, and this is how we defined then the model itself, right? So it allows anyone, any two people, any team, any community, any organization, it doesn't matter who, to come together and say, hey, you know, let's support this cause. Let's oppose homelessness in Denver, street by street. Let's take Blake Street first and let's do a campaign for Blake Street, and let's take then Market Street. See, I'm getting my streets. So you can actually do it, one by one, and then if it works here, why shouldn't it be implemented somewhere else? And allow that sort of communication be enable that communication and that share of that knowledge to be implemented elsewhere. So it actually brings the opportunity to create something good in a very small scale, but bring it to something larger, with a larger impact in a larger environment or scale or ecosystem. So,
well, and if I may, one of the things that I love about Giveth coming from the traditional nonprofit sector is the transparency. There's usually so little transparency. You give your money and you kind of hope that they go do the project that they said they were going to. But with Giveth, it's based on milestones, so everyone can see that the funds are getting released as we do what we said we were going to do.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really inspiring.
Thank you for saying that. I actually omit that big part of it.
So I'm gonna ask you guys all the same question. I want your feedback. What is the greatest, since you guys are there working directly on social impact, two-part question. What are the greatest, and doesn't have to go in order and you can discuss, but what are the greatest challenges that projects working on social impact are facing? And what can other people do to participate to help get past those challenges?
That's a great question. One thing that I'm really excited about, and I think we think of challenges like something that's actually bad, but one thing I'm really excited about in this space is how we start changing our thinking about for-profit, nonprofit, like this traditional duality that we've had about where you're either a shark trying to make a bunch of money, or you're poor trying to help the poor. Whereas there's this wonderful opportunity that we have right now where we can actually generate wealth as we help each other in totally new ways. So it doesn't have to be exclusive, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing that you're actually creating wealth for yourself and for greater projects through all of this. So I think it is a challenge in that we are really used to this model, and we're bringing kind of legacy thinking into this new Wild West of a space. So challenging ourselves to think about resource creation in different ways that really do serve each other and don't bring in some of the older ways of thinking.
Absolutely. I think that this space or this technologies allows us to bring that transparency and the different business models that are out there that actually allows us to see where this money is spent and how the money is spent. I think that's already a big plus, and it takes us far away from anything that we have right now today in the traditional systems that we have to deal with. But I would say for anyone who wants to be part of this and actually be part of a project that brings some impact, there's so much out there. I mean, find out what business models are being implemented. People are very transparent about how they want to use those funds. And I think this is exactly the opportunity that we have in our hands to support those who actually are very forthcoming about how they're going to use the funds and how these funds are actually going to be legitimized and exposed to kind of that confirmation. So there are different projects in Giveth. We are dealing with a number of projects like this, and we are actually implementing a circle, as we call it, a group of these decentralized altruistic communities, whereby they bring social coding as the primary purpose to bring those projects into kind of a visibility and bring them more into the light of what we're doing. So we are very much open to share these ideas and to share these concepts with everyone who joins our teams, our Slack. And all these projects are coming there to the social coding. So anyone who wants to be part of that is invited to join us on the Slack.
Awesome.
That's great. Well, I have to answer your question a little bit more in general terms because I'm not quite as accomplished as you. So in terms of challenges, I think it's important that you both use challenges and opportunities. So challenges for blockchain and social good is that it isn't in the traditional structure. So if I want to do something the traditional way for good, I have a roadmap and I have steps that I can do to follow and follow through on that. But the opportunity is that we don't necessarily have the same roadmap. Yeah. We have a lot more freedom, and we also have a group of people who are very passionate about blockchain technology. I go back to the principles. So it's much more than the headlines of Bitcoin. The people who have been in this space for a significant amount of time are doing it because they believe in the values behind it. And that's something as a blockchain nonprofit we can really tap into and have a really vast impact.
Have you had much success getting buy-in from either traditional institutions or groups, or even just blockchain projects?
Yeah, well, I think it was hard initially, because you go to the traditional sources, and as soon as you have a great idea, and as soon as you say Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, their eyes roll back behind their head, and they're like, oh, I don't want this. But there is opportunity there, and one that I do want to mention is our recent partnership with Regis University. So they see the light, and they are going to be working with us. Yeah, representing today.
They're actually here today. The team's over there. Raise your hands, guys.
Yeah.
If you have a chance to talk to them, they're awesome. They're really cool.
Nice.
So we'll be creating a course in collaboration with them for those kids at Regis University, and then we have a new pilot program. And those details, I would need my own presentation to go into, so I'll leave it at that.
Michael, I'm going to tailor the question a little bit for you. It seems like, from what I understand, you focus really on kind of enabling projects to have a greater impact. What challenges have you found you were able to address, maybe through storytelling or through that narrative expertise that you have, and how have you been able to enable projects that have more impact?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of the problems that I'm sure Giveth has is, something good happens in the world and nobody hears about it. And so we actually encourage companies to tell their stories of good, either internally having people from the company blog about, or Facebook about, tell about the things that they're doing good in the world. As the tide rises, so do all boats. We really need to have this capacity as a movement and a community to tell these stories of good, so that everybody else knows that, hey, it's okay to involve ourselves in this. It's okay for a part of our business to impact things in a positive way. And I think it's the thing that's going to help us overcome what I think is probably the biggest obstacle in the world right now, which is this over reliance on a win-lose game model in the world. So if we're in a win-lose game model, that means in order for me to give, I have to lose a little bit. In order for somebody else to win, I have to lose a little bit, and that's a confronting thing. And so by telling stories of how companies or organizations can overcome problems, have good happen in the world, and not lose, so that we demonstrate win-win in the world, I think that's if I could pick one leverage point that I would turn the whole axis of the earth on, is if people were to understand that the more good I do, the better my life is.
Yeah.
The better my organization is. The less turnover I have in my organization, the more good feelings people have, the more happiness there is on the planet. So telling stories is a big part of that.
So there's a kind of the theme of the conversation earlier in the day or the morning was how important, how impactful the way that we do things or the tools that we use, how that impacts how we feel about things, the significance of society, how they shape it. And so can you remind me one more time the name of your pre-search? How are you guys approaching this idea of tools and the mechanism of what you guys are building?
Well, one thing that we've been finding as we've been developing the project that's really quite shocking is that our search results skew our perceptions. So you can have any issue that's divided 50-50, and based on search results, you can actually shift perception of that up to 90-10. So we have a very big company in the world today that has provided enormous value and has a ton of power over the way that we view the world right now. So if we can open this up and start to, again, decentralize and give power back to the community and make things more transparent, pull some of this information out from behind the curtain and share with each other, then I think that's really important, because right now we have a couple companies that have enormous ability to change the way that we view each other, the issues in our world. And so those kinds of tools, and through this kind of community focus and peer-to-peer interaction, I think we have a really great opportunity to start putting the power in our hands rather than keeping it conglomerated.
It's beautiful. I want you to answer the same question, Grace, because in a lot of ways, building something that is a protocol is a tool. And you don't really, what I'm curious about with that is it hard to let go of control of how people use your tool? Is it challenging? Is it scary? Why do you let go of control of your tool? Why do you open source it?
It's definitely scary at the beginning because you feel that you're building something great and you want to make sure there's always great and it's used for that purpose. But it's in the end we learned that only by opening and allowing others to collaborate and bring their own ideas into it, that was the only way that we would evolve to what we are today. So it has, from that side, it has taught us a great lesson. However, we also are exposed to we invite people to take our code, take our, everything that we've built and make it your own. Make it in a way that you would want to see this work for you. And, that would raise questions about, are they using it for a good purpose? Do we need to go back there and start checking to see whether they're actually doing it for something good? How do we define good in your eyes, in my eyes, on somebody else's eyes? But in the end, we need to let everything happen naturally as well, because it would follow its own course and it will actually stabilize and get to the medium, if you will.
All right. That's awesome.
We can't control that. Yeah.
That's really cool. Dan, call to action. How can people contribute, get involved with Salt Foundation? Where do they find out information about it?
We will actually have a new website launching soon, and a lot of it is going to be starting out featured with our Regis partnership. Okay. The idea is that we are very passionate about the tools that we're providing for opportunity. So that's blockchain technology, that's cryptocurrency, and it's financial literacy. So education and opportunity are those biggest tools. We are going to have the pilot program at Regis, and we want to stay true to our mission, but the idea is to have these sort of training pools around the world. So this is a global issue, and there isn't one solution to it. So we want to have these basic tools and go in and have an inclusive relationship with the community that we're trying to serve. So it's not, this is how you do it because this is how it worked at Regis. We're going to say, what are the issues that you're facing? Mm-hmm. How can it be solved with these tools? And then as we get more success, we'll be adding more and more resources to it.
Shannon, how do we get involved with pre-search?
We are in private beta right now, but we're opening up later this month. So presearch.org, you can request to join. We love your feedback. And we're tokenizing the testing of the platform right now, so you'll start earning tokens as you start switching.
Awesome. And last but not least, Grace, how do we get involved with Giveth? You guys are pre-launch, is that true?
We are on an alpha.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we went from testnet to mainnet for a while, but then Ethereum prices went really high in transactions, so we had to go back to testnet. So it was like, yeah, exactly. That was exactly the case. So we decided that we will roll back a little bit and then find other creative ways where we can minimize transaction costs. So we are creating an OR side chain, if you want to get into it, and that would allow us to really bring some really fast transactions to go through this platform. But one thing I wanted to say before you tell me that it's over, that I've heard this morning talk about all the great things about crypto and all this world, and I saw so many people standing up and saying, yeah, this is the first time I'm here, this is the first time I'm hearing about this, and they're all excited about. I just want to say, crypto is not the only thing that we're talking about in this world, and it's not the main thing. Blockchain as a technology is a transformative technology, and it has limitless capacity to really transform things, business models and systems in a way that we would never even thought of. So I just want to say that blockchain, or it's not crypto, or crypto is not blockchain, and we can definitely use this technology to transform our lives. And I truly believe that that we're doing that now.
That's a great that's great message to close off our panel. One, I want to thank you guys for being here, and I also really want to thank you guys for dedicating your life and efforts to doing what you guys are doing. I think making the world a better place for all of us.
It's easy.
Thank you.